All right, and welcome. Yeah, I think this should be good. You should be able to hear me. If you can hear me, give me a thumbs up. All right, just to know that you folks can hear me. All right, okay. Now, what we're gonna do today is the following, right? I am going to share with you an incredible tool called ChatGPT. And, as I think many of you know, that ChatGPT has been something that, has taken the world by storm, so to speak, right? And in today's video itself, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through ChatGPT. And if you haven't already, experimented with ChatGPT, really now's the time to do so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you some of the things that I have learned over the last few months or so while working on ChatGPT, and I think it's going to be something that it's really, really interesting. Now, before we get into any more of the show itself, I just want to make sure that you can hear me all right. So, Sam Eric, good to see you. So, can you just let me know that you can hear me all right? Okay, that's good. Right. Okay, so the few things I like to do here. One is, of course, to make sure that we talked a little bit about Chat GPT. What does it entail, and how to you get the best out of Chat GPT itself? Okay, all right, and so thank you. Now, the other thing that I need to figure out here on my end is that the live streaming has changed quite a fair bit. So what I like to do is to make sure that everything goes according to plan. Okay, all right. So ChatGPT, what exactly is ChatGPT itself? I think one of the best way um, to do this is actually to get a better idea of what it entails and what this whole thing is all about. Now, let me see if I can share my screen here. Okay, for some reason, I seem to not be able to share my screen. In any case, well, let's just get on with it. Okay, so the way to think about ChatGPT is as follows, right? Um, if you understand this whole concept about the ice harvesting, actually, the first time I heard about this whole concept, I heard it from this guy called Guy Kawasaki. And so the whole idea behind that is the following. Essentially, it's the idea about how, when you want to get ice, right? In the past, how do people get their ice? Now, interestingly, how they got their ice in the past was essentially, what they would do is they would actually go out to a field, and on the field itself, that's where they start to harvest the ice. So, if you can imagine, like this group of people, they will go out onto the field, and it will be winter. And so, what they will be doing is they would then be, sharing, or they would then be looking at how you could, share the hang on, all right, let me get this right out first. I think I would be able to do this. All right. Yes. Okay. So let me put up my slides, and then I think go to show this. All right, just give me a second here. Mhm. All right, it's taking a while it's taking the time to upload. Just let me know in the chat if you have been using ChatGPT, and if you have, type in yes. If you have not, type in no. All right. So have you been using ChatGPT? And that's something that I really like to know because for the longest time, or when I speak to many people these days, I think many of them have actually started playing around with ChatGPT itself, and that's really really interesting because I think that's something that many people could benefit from, right? So, have you tried ChatGPT? And if you have, what was your what is the mileage that you get out of ChatGPT itself? Was it good? Was it not good? Did you like what you see there in terms of the responses from ChatGPT? Right, that's something that I would like to know from you. Okay, all right. For some strange reason, I am not able to share my slide, and this is annoying. Well, let me check this out. Okay. Yeah. So, anyways, so the whole idea with really being able to look at eyes, I think that is something that you can think about, right? There you go. Okay, so well, let's start from the beginning again. All right, it's well, okay. So, thank you for being here. And essentially, what I would like to do is kind of to walk you through this whole concept of how you could use ChatGPT. And but before we get to that, really, what exactly is ChatGPT? And so, I came up with this tagline that talks about leveraging AI or leveraging ChatGPT for good, right? And the whole idea behind this is that because as with all tools, right, it can be used in the best way possible, or it could be used in a way that kind of bring harm to each other itself. So what we really want to do is we want to promote the best use of AI and how we are able to leverage AI and use it in such a way that it's for good. So, thank you, Sam Eric, for your comments there. You saying that yes, specific prompts and using column with as much info as possible have assisted you in getting results. All right, so this is good. This is good. Hey, hi, John. How are you doing? Right. Okay. So as we look at this whole thing here, I think what I like to do is to kind of once again bring you back to ice harvesting. Okay, so in the past, if you want to get blocks of ice, what you have to do is, if you look at this slide out here, these people would actually have to go out to a field and harvest the ice. So they have to wait till like, when there is winter or there is sufficient the temperature is right, that's the only time that they could harvest ice. And oh, by the way, I heard this. I heard this think about ice harvesting from this guy called Guy Kawasaki. So, really interesting. So, what happened is that, after harvesting all this ice, what they have to do is, of course, as you know, ice, once it's left out in the open, it's going to melt. And so they have to build this huge factory to put the ice in there so that throughout the year they could actually transport the ice to their customers itself, right? So it's something that is really unthinkable. So if you want to get some ice, you would actually have to you know order or pre-order from this group of people called the ice harvester, and they would freeze the ice and they would cut it out into pieces, and then they would then ship it to you. So can you imagine the amount of time that you have to wait just to get ice? Well, of course, these days, how we get our ice is essentially through our ice box, right, in our refrigerator. And so the way to think about this is that ice harvesting has gone from people going out to the field to get the blocks of ice to you can just go into your refrigerator, fill up some water in this ice cube container, and then put it in your ice box, and voila, a couple of hours later you would get your ice. All right. And so this is, if you like, the evolution or the technology that has evolved with regards to ice harvesting or making ice or buying ice itself. Now, what has that got to do with ChatGPT? Now, what that got to do with ChatGPT here is as follow. Now, as many of you know, when it comes to the AI itself, I think many people have got the concept that, how am I going to use this in such a way that it's able to help me? And sometimes people are confused because they are thinking that, oh, is AI going to take over my job? Am I going to be, out of job because AI is going to do all these things that previously only I could do it? And the answer is both yes and no. And so, what we like to do here is to, walk you through a few things just to get you familiarized, and then from there we are going to showcase how you could use Chat GPT itself. All right, and so one of the best use cases when it comes to using ChatGPT in your workflow is probably as follows. Many of my contemporaries, people who I work with, for example, they have to produce a ton of content online, and they have to write articles, they have to write social media posts, they have to write captions for the pictures that they're going to put out on social media itself. So the question here is, how are we going to be able to use ChatGPT for good, right? And so one of the ways here is that, imagine if you have to say, on Tuesday, every Tuesday morning, what you have to do is you have to sit down, and as you're sitting down, you have to come up with an article, right? With a 500-word article, for example. So you probably be like, this guy in the picture here, you'll be sitting down, you'll be cracking your head, and you'll be wondering, like, what am I going to write? In fact, just a couple of days back, I was on a discovery call with a prospect from Tucson, Arizona. And he was telling me, right, that today is the day that he has to publish his newsletter, and he's struggling with what to write and all that. And so this is something that I think many of us can identify with, right? Another scenario that you can think of is that for some of us, we actually need to look at a fair amount of data and information on an ongoing basis itself. So, for example, like in my field of work, right? I do a lot of reading, I do a lot of research, I look at some statistics. And what I really want to do is to be able to pull all this information together. And as we talk about pulling all this information together, the question here is, how much time am I going to use to do all that? So if I were to go back to when I was in school, I actually have to travel to the library, and then at the library itself, I have to look for the book. And if it's unfortunate that I couldn't get the book, right? Someone else have got it before me, then too bad for me, right? And so that's the amount of extent of effort that you have to put in to do a fair bit of research. And even for, like, for example, for myself, I remember when I was doing my master's thesis, I was having to sit in front of the computer in the computer lab, just going through like tons and tons of articles, microfilms, and the whole purpose behind it is so that I could, dive into this whole vast library of information and data. Right, that is another possibility. The other thing, right, that I could that I have come into contact with, people are using ChatGPT, or they are really benefiting from using ChatGPT. People in corporate communications. So many of these people would have to draft some kind of an communication, memo or some communication to go out, to inform the public, or to inform the customers, as an example, or to inform, like the stock exchange. And I know this guy who used to work with me, and he would spend like at least a couple of hours trying to craft. I wouldn't say it's the perfect a press release, but he would spend a couple of hours trying to craft this press release itself, right? And so, where does AI takes us? Well, let's go back to this guy again, right? I mean, instead of him sitting there on Tuesday morning and really trying to crack his head on what to write, what he can potentially do is to leverage and to be able to use the power of ChatGPT to create ideas, to generate ideas for him. Okay, and that's something that it's incredibly interesting, and also something that it's incredibly fascinating in another way, right? And so he doesn't have to sit there and think about what to write. Instead, what he could really do is that he could just type into chat gpt and just to ask chat, right? Like, what are the things that what are some of the ideas that I have, and how I could get give me a bunch of ideas about a particular article, for example. All right. And for my use case, for example, I use I actually have to look at a lot of data, information, and what I really like to do is to pull all this together to see if I could come up with some kind of an insight, right? And so, in the past, I probably have to print it all out and lay on the table, and really go through that. But these days, what I really only need to do is that I just need to put it into chat gpt, and there you have it. I will have my input from there, right? So it's something that it's like really really fascinating, if you ask me, and it's something that is truly groundbreaking for everyone here itself. Okay, and so yeah, so what is this chat gpt, in case you are still not familiar with that? So ChatGPT is a technology. It's a AI created by this company called OpenAI. And in OpenAI itself, essentially what they have developed is this large language models. And so what they do is that they take all this information, and in a sense they feed it into this AI itself. And so when you type in certain things, that's where you will be able to get all this wonderful responses from chat gpt, right? So there are a few ways that you can think about leveraging AI in your work. And one of my favorite ways of using ChatGPT is that I use it as a sounding board, right? I use it as a sounding board. I use it to brainstorm, to come up with ideas. I would use it and say, hey, would you be able to generate a list of ideas for an article that I want to write for this group of people, addressing this specific need, and from there, I will get it to come up with ideas itself. And sometimes, it's a hit and miss, right? Sometimes it's a good list that I get, but sometimes, the list that I get isn't all that good itself. So one may ask, right? How do I make sure that I'm able to get a good results or good responses from ChatGPT? And that's what we're going to be talking about in a bit. Okay, and so um, well, one way to use it is really to use it as a partner, as a sparring partner, to come up with different ideas and to come up with different ways, right, that you could do something. Okay, so that's one way. Now, another way that you can think of where it comes into using of AI is that you could actually use it to do work that you do not like to do. So for example, I do not like to do my accounts, and so I would hire an accountant. But arguably now, I do not want to come up with content ideas, or I do not want to spend so much time digging into statistics itself. And what I could actually potentially get ChatGPT to do is that I could ask it to go to a specific website and pull out some information, or go and give me the cliff notes of a particular book, which is something that I've gotten it to do, right? And very quickly, in a bed of an eyelid, you will be able to get the kind of responses, and you'll be able to get the kind of results from ChatGPT itself. So it's pretty amazing stuff, if you ask me. And so, I have seen many people use ChatGPT, and I would say many people have used it wrongly, right? Many people have used it wrongly. And so, when I say many people have used it wrongly, what exactly do I mean? So, as an example, people have been using it and say that, write me a short story, right? Write me a short story. Well and good. If you want ChatGPT to write you a short story, it will write you a short story. However, that short story that you get from ChatGPT may not be the story that you were expecting, right? So if you were to type in the prompt this way, write me a short story, you are probably going to get very generic, very plain vanilla kind of stories. Okay, so what you can potentially do is to do it one up. And what I mean by doing one up is that instead of just saying that, write me a short story, what you may want to do is that you may want to say that, write me a short story about how a little girl um, was lost, and she was all anxious to look for her parents, something like that, right? And so if you give it that level of specificity, what it can potentially do is that it will be able to generate far better results than if you just give it a plain instructions, or instructions that are too generic. So one of the ways to think about this, and in a funny way, it's, for example, um, this is what you would not do in real life, right? For example, so let's say you walked into one of the electronic stores and you want to buy a computer, and so this salesperson walks up to you and say, "Hey, hi, can I help you?" And you say, "Okay, well, I'd like to buy a computer." And so what did the guy say? The guy will probably ask you like, okay, is there a particular brand or particular model you're looking at? What might be your use case? It's it being light or heavy matters to you, on and on and on, right? And so imagine you look at a guy and you say, I just want to buy a computer. What do you think the guy is going to say? The guy will be like, okay, but what kind of computer? There's so many different type of computer. And you say, well, I just want to buy a computer, right? So that's not going to get you very far. And at the end of the day, you're probably going to buy something, but it's not going to be something that it's going to suit your need. Okay. And so when you think about using ChatGPT, what are the most important thing to do is that you have to put in prompts, or you have to type into ChatGPT, and you have to say things that are specific, right? You have to say things that are specific enough so that you are able to get the kind of results that you want, right? So you have to type in things that are specific enough. And once it's specific, that's where you will be able to get the best result possible. Okay. And so, what I would like you to think about when you are using ChatGPT is to think of the equivalent of the following, right? So imagine you have the opportunity to sit down with J.K. Rowling, right? You had the opportunity to sit down with J.K. Rowling, and assuming that you really, really love her novels, Harry Potter, and all that, right? You really love her work, and imagine you're sitting down with her, and she comes up to you and she say, "Hey, um, I will write you a best-selling novel." Of course, she wouldn't know whether it's going to be best-selling, but that's besides the point, right? At least it's written by J.K. Rowling. So, she say that, I'm going to write you a best-selling novel. What would you like me to write for you? And can you imagine, if you have J.K. Rowling sitting in front of you and asking you, giving you that request and telling you that just ask me anything and I'll write it down for you, with my style. And you just say, well, write me a children novel. And so she would go like, okay, you want a children novel? All right, I will write you this children novel. And so let's just imagine in a matter of seconds, she writes you a children novel. And you go through it and you get really, really excited. And then you say, well, you know, I really like the main character to be a girl rather than a boy. Could you do that? And she said, of course I can. I can do anything for you. Right. And she goes out and she scrubs everything away and she rewrites the entire novel. And in a matter of seconds, she gives you that novel. And there you go. You have your favorite children's novel with the main character who is a girl. And you read it and you go like, come, can you set the setting of the novel in the medieval time instead of the modern times? And she goes like, of course I can, right? And that's what she does. And so, this whole process could go on and on and on. And of course, if you are going to be doing that with a human, the amount of content that you're going to get and the speed in which you are going to get, it's only as fast as what's humanly possible, right? Now imagine a different scenario here, and this scenario, it's J.K. Rowling sitting in front of you and she say that, I will write you the best selling children novel if all you have to do is tell me what you want. But this time round, you can only say your request one time, right? You can't iterate from there. You can only do it one time. What would you say to her? You will probably think about it for a while and say that, oh, I want you to write a children novel. The main character is a girl, and I want it to be set in the medieval times, right? I like all this dragons and all this cool stuff, right, in the children novel itself. And you know, with that command or with that request, J.K. Rowling is then going to write you that children novel as per your request. So when you think about using ChatGPT, what you really want to think about is, imagine if you have, the wisest person, right? Or imagine you have the person that you would like him or her to mentor you sitting right in front of you. And assuming, right, if you have to tell this person what he or she can do for you, how would you say it? Right? And if you can only say it once, how would you say it? I'm sure you would give as much detail as possible. And you would want to make sure that whatever specific details or information or request, you want to make sure that that request is fed into or is given to that person itself. So likewise, when you are using ChatGPT, do not go away thinking that, oh, I am just going to type in, write me a short story, right? Or write me a, 1,000 word article about the iPhone 13 mini, right? If you're just gonna ask that, you are probably very likely, not probably, you are very likely going to get very generic results, and those results aren't going to get you very far, because you're gonna look at that and you're gonna say, meh, is that all you got, right? And so, what you want to do is you want to understand how ChatGPT works and how you are able to make sure that you get the best out of that. And so the way to think about this is that you really want to put in as much information as possible. And more importantly, what you really want to do is also to make sure that the information that you put in, it's something that it's going to give you the kind of return. So I'm just looking down because I just want to see if there are any comments or is there any questions that you might have. Please feel free to drop it in the chat. I would be more than happy to answer your question. Okay. So today's session here really is just an introductory session. It's a session that I just want to kick off because there is just so much that we can talk about with regards to Chat GPT. And so if there are any specific content, or if there are any specific area that you would like me to cover, make sure you leave it in the comment, and I will be sure to answer those questions, or perhaps use that as I will answer that in the future sessions itself, right? And so the way that you want to think about using Chat GPT is that you want to be able to give it as much information as possible, but also at the same time, you want to make sure that you have your thinking figured out, right? And so the way to think about this is, this book called How to Take Smart Notes, right? And if you think about this, in the book itself, what it talks about how to take smart notes, essentially what it's looking at, it's when you read something, right? When you read something, um, and you would want to take some notes, how is it that how would you capture a notes, and what would you write in that notes? Would you just highlight, in your book itself, or would you take a snapshot and perhaps put it in your phone, and at the end of the day, you will process it. So how would you do it, right? And so according to this book, the best way that you can take notes, it's not by highlighting, not by underlining, and not copying verbatim, right, word for word what you see in the book, and you just write it down as your note itself. So the way that you should be taking notes is as follows. You should be reading that paragraph, and once you are done reading the paragraph itself, the key question you want to ask yourself is the following: how can I make use of this information, and how can I use it to solve a problem? Right? How can I make use of this information, and how can I use it to solve a problem? And so once you are able to answer that question, the note that you take from this article or this book, or this journal that you are reading, for example, it's going to help you to be able to look at that piece of information, and have the proper context of it. And with the proper context, that's where you are able to make the best use of that information. And so what's going to happen is when you are using ChatGPT, that's one of the key things that you want to bring to the table itself. So you do not, want to go into ChatGPT and just say that, write me an article, right? You want to say that, I want you to write me an article, and this article is focusing on, this group of people who are architects, for example, and they're looking at specifically, they are looking at, addressing this particular problem, right? And so what I like you to do is I like you to write an article about how this group of architects have been facing this problem, and with the suboptimal solution that they have been using, it has cost the building owners, a lot of money, and it has also made their design less desirable, right? So I would like you to write an article, um, uh, focusing on this group of architects facing this particular problem, because this problem is going to result in, the building owners, costing the building owners a lot of money, and also make their design less desirable. So I like you to write an article focusing on that, and then I would like you to, take my product, right? Take my product and demonstrate how my product is able to solve the problem that the architects have been facing, and what it's going to entail, what kind of benefit it's going to get. They're going to make their design a lot more interesting or a lot more unique. It's going to make their design more environmentally friendly, and you want to dig out all these various specific benefits itself. And so when you are able to give that level of specificity into ChatGPT, the result that you are going to get, it's going to be tremendously useful. Now, that being said, right? That being said, there are two things that you will still need, and I would say, you will still need a human to do this part of the work. So yes, ChatGPT is going to help you come up with the first draft. It's going to help you write an article that you and I otherwise would expend hours of energy and frustration trying to come up with an article. ChatGPT is going to be able to help you do that in a fraction of a minute, right? And the way that you want to make the best use of it is you want to give it as much specific information, or to give it specific instruction of what to do so that you are able to get the best result possible from ChatGPT. All right. So that's what I would like you to focus on and really pay attention to. Now, the other two things that I mentioned earlier that still requires a human to do this is as follows, right? So number one, um, even after ChatGPT comes and give you all this amazing information, what you really want to do is would still want to make sure that that information is factually accurate and that information is correct. All right, I personally have experience whereby I asked ChatGPT to give me an example that you retrieve from the web and then give me the specific URL of the source that it got it from. And so it confidently was able to give me the example. It will confidently was able to quote me the article and even give me the URLs, right? But when you click on it, it goes to a 404, right? Page not found. So there are still things that will require a human to vet and to check. And so, it's not going to be just putting in the prompts into ChatGPT and after that you just submit that article to whatever platform or submit that article to your bosses. It's not going to work that way, and that's not what it's supposed to do. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, it's that you know as with all things, right? As with all tools itself, it can be used for good, it can be used for bad. And what I would really want to promote here on this platform itself is that we really want to, trailblaze the way of how individuals, businesses are able to leverage AI for good. And when I say leverage AI for good, what exactly do I mean? I think we are at this juncture whereby we are incredibly lucky to have a tool like this. However, there will be people those who are able to master the tool in a short period of time, it's definitely going to get a huge advantage over people who are not able to um, master the tool itself. And so what we really want to do here is we want to make our programs and our guides as affordable as possible, but not cheap, right? We want to make it affordable. And the reason behind that is because we want to make it accessible to as many people as possible. So you may think at this point in time, it's not going to take over my job, or I can't see how I could be using it. I think if you think that way, you are in, you are you might you really want to rethink. I wouldn't say you want to rethink, because you know if you think about most profession these days, right? Most profession these days would require the use of a PowerPoint slide. You would need the use of a mobile phone, for example, right? And so AI is going to be that level of integral part of our life, that no matter what job you do, there's going to be a way that AI is going to be an integral part. Now, will it replace some jobs? Obviously, it will replace some jobs, but that would also opens up opportunity for many of us who knows how to leverage this tool and to be able to leverage this tool for good. And so in our next session here, what I really want to do is I want to do a deep dive into prompt engineering and what does it look like, and how could you get better results out of chat gpt. And of course, I have access to GPT-4, and so I've been using it a lot. It's still not polished yet, but it is as good as it gets, right? And so, what I like to do in the next session is we're going to talk about prompt engineering and what exactly is prompt engineering, and how by understanding the syntax of ChatGPT, you will be able to get the most out of it, right? And so, once again, if you got a question about AI or ChatGPT in particular, right, make sure you leave your question in the comments, and I'll make sure to get to that. All right. And if there is a specific topic or a specific area that you would like me to talk about a little bit more, or do a deep dive, or to demonstrate, right, make sure you leave it in the chat as well. And so, with that, this is Melvin Tan here from Bifinity AI. And together, let's leverage AI for good. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.